Dear students, today's video from the business law book is Unlawful Consideration and Object. So you will get information about the unlawful consideration and object regarding section 10 of the Contract Act 1872. In this video, I will provide you the detail about the unlawful consideration and unlawful objects. An agreement can become a contract only when it is made with a lawful consideration and with a lawful object. So students, where agreement is lawful, then contract would be valid, otherwise not. So to make a valid agreement, the consideration of that agreement and object of that agreement should be lawful. Otherwise, that agreement will not be considered as a valid agreement, and without valid agreement, a valid contract cannot be established. So if the consideration or object of a contract is unlawful, the agreement is illegal and therefore void. The word object means purpose and consideration means the price of promise. Example for students understanding: A takes the house from B on rent. There is nothing unlawful in this case. But if A wants to store illegal arms in the house, the agreement is unlawful due to unlawful object. So being unlawful object, the agreement would be void, and being void agreement will not change into a valid contract. According to section 23, the consideration or object of an agreement is unlawful in the following cases. So you can say section 23 guides us regarding the unlawful objects and consideration of an agreement. The first one is if it is forbidden by law. If the consideration or object of an agreement is forbidden by law, the agreement is void. An act is forbidden by law. So when act is forbidden by law, number one, when it is punishable by criminal law of a country, or when it is prohibited by special act of legislature. Here is example: B and C agree to divide the goods obtained by theft. The agreement is unlawful because this agreement is punishable by a criminal law of the country. The second one is the sale of liquor without license is illegal and so void. The next one is agreement to sell above the price fixed by law is illegal and void. So with the help of these examples, you can understand the agreements which are punishable by law. So the agreements which are prohibited by special act of legislature are void agreements, and void agreements cannot change into a valid contract. The next one is if it defeats the provision of any law, where the object or consideration of an agreement is of such a nature that if permitted, it would defeat the provision of any law. Such object or consideration may not be directly forbidden by law. It will indirectly violate law and so illegal. To support this point, example is A fails to pay his loan to HBFC. His house is sold for recovery of debt. By law, A is prohibited from purchasing his house. A asks B to purchase the house and transfer to him. The agreement is void as it defeats the object of law which prohibits A to purchase the house. The next one is if it is fraudulent. So where their object or consideration is based on fraud, then the agreement will be void agreement and such agreement will not change into a valid contract. If the object or consideration of an agreement is to defraud others, is unlawful and so void. Where the parties agree to commit a fraud on third person, the agreement is illegal. Here is example: A promises to pay rupees 20,000 to B on B's promise to commit fraud on C. The agreement is illegal and void between A and B. The fourth one is if it involves injury to person or property of another person. If the object or consideration of an agreement is to cause an injury to the person or property of another is illegal and also void. Injury here means criminal or wrongful harm. Example, students, an agreement to put certain property on fire is unlawful and void. The next one is if the court regards it as immoral. If the consideration or object of an agreement is such that the court regards it immoral, the consideration is void. A married woman was given money to obtain divorce from her husband and then to marry the lender, held the agreement was immoral and the lender could not recover the money. Here in this example, the agreement of woman with the lender is void because it is against the morality of a society. The next one is if the court regards it as opposed to the public policy. Broadly speaking, students, an agreement which leads to corruption, injustice, or morality is considered to be against public policy. So, following agreements have been held to be against public policy, students. So, such agreements which are against the public policy and their considerations regarding such opposition of public policy will make the void agreements. So, void agreements will not change into a valid contract. Example, the agreement to give money to induce a person to give false evidence is void. The next one is agreement to influence a judge is also considered as opposing to the public policy. So this is all about the unlawful consideration and unlawful object of an agreement. Goodbye.